We are closing in on one of the more massive weeks in sprint car racing, and this one will be happening right here in our own backyard. The Showdown, as it's been dubbed, will kick off with Sunday's weekly show at Huset's, but things will only ratchet up from there. The World of Outlaws then roll into Brandon for the Huset's 50 on June 20th and 21st. Wednesday will then be a travel day as the action shifts 80 miles east to Jackson Motorplex, site of the 43rd annual Agco Jackson Nationals, which are set for June 24th through the 26th. And we are talking big money on the line with a total purse of over $600,000 for the week. Doug Johnson, the general manager of both Huset's Speedway and Jackson Motorplex, says those figures put the Showdown in some elite company.
We consider it one of the big three events right now, I think, in the entire country. And, we've been working with different sanctioning bodies, like the All-Stars. They have that weekend off. So we've talked to a bunch of their teams, along with all the World of Outlaw drivers. We're anticipating a huge field of cars. $50,000 to win the Jackson Nationals this year, $30,000 to win the Huset's 50. And if the same driver can win both events, there's a $100,000 bonus. So, with that included, it's, I think, the third highest paying sprint car race in the entire country this year.
Well, there is plenty to unpack with the Showdown, and no one better equipped to help us with that than our own Brian Shawn. He joins us now for a segment we're calling Track Prep. Brian, we just heard it there from Doug Johnson. They're expecting a huge field of cars for this event, highlighted, of course, by the World of Outlaws. So let's start with them. Is there a more grueling stretch of schedule than what the guys affiliated with the greatest show on dirt are going to be facing here over the next week and change?
Well, this is the toughest one they've had in a long time, Jay. When you think about even last year, they didn't run that many races. And you can maybe argue that week and weekend of the Knoxville Nationals with the Ironman 55 Cappy Classic Front Row Challenge. But remember, it's not only the two shows at Huset's on a Monday, Tuesday, followed by the 3 days in Jackson. The Outlaws have a 3-race week at 3 different tracks in Iowa. Then a travel day to Huset's. Then a tough field of cars to contend with from across the region. So you're talking 8 races in 10 days on 5 different tracks. If you hurt a motor, destroy a car, some of the smaller teams specifically could really have a tough time getting through some of that. As hard as you have to run night in, night out with the Outlaws, it's going to be a grind, especially if things go wrong early in that stretch. So you don't have time to hit the reset button. Brock Zirfa, a really good example. Rookie, talented driver, out there doing his best. He's wrecked 6 cars already. He's had to sit out a couple of weeks with concussion issues. These types of stretches really test a team's resilience and toughness. And even a guy like Donnie Schatz still looking for that first win. TSR is chomping at the bit here. Kerry Madsen almost won 2 races at Knoxville, lost the lead both late in those races. So it's going to be a heck of a lot of fun to see what happens here.
Well, as if the Showdown itself wasn't unique enough, that bonus that Doug mentioned is really something. Again, a driver would have to win Tuesday at Huset's and Saturday at Jackson to get it. But my question to you, Brian, is which drivers and or teams are set up best to realistically contend for something like that?
Well, the teams that are most consistently at the top, I think, have the best shot just because they're in the dashes most often. The bigger teams running well right now. Carson Macedo is one of them, especially late in features. 2 wins at Knoxville this past week, coming back late. His crew chief, Phil Dietz, has things really dialed in for that JJR team. Brad Sweet, always a threat with Casey Kane racing. He leads the tour with 9 wins, almost twice as many as anybody else, and he's been really good at both tracks, won some big races. David Gravel's been running really strong throughout the season as well. That car's been pretty solid all season long. And dark horse for me, Logan Schuchart. When everything is running well and the Sharks got that car going the way it's capable, he's got the ability to run low, high, different parts of the tracks, big and small, and developed into a really consistent driver. So I'm going to be curious to see who wins Tuesday and see how they handle the pressure for Saturday, because that is, as you said, a huge chunk of change.
No doubt about it. Logan Schuchart, of course, the defending Jackson Nationals champ as well. Well, is there a smaller regional team that you think has a chance to steal one of these 2 main events, either Tuesday or Saturday? And which of the 2 tracks do you think that's more likely at?
Oh, definitely more likely, I think, is Huset's, just because you have more 410 races there consistently this season. More guys are running more laps there, and that usually benefits some of those local and regional teams, but it's still going to be tough. I think maybe a Gio Scelzi is a guy with KCP Racing is due. No wins yet, but he's been close. Austin McCarroll's run well at Huset's already, 3 wins. Justin Henderson knows his way around that place. But typically those smaller tracks will tend to level the playing field a little bit more, not as much horsepower necessary maybe all the time to stay even with the Outlaws. But to knock those guys off, you've really got to qualify well. You got to get a good spot in your heat race, top 6 for the dash. So a good draw also helps. Everything has to go right, though, from every phase, from beginning to end. Coming from row 4 or 5 is tough to do against those best drivers in the world.
There is no doubt about that. Well, I, for one, cannot wait to see how this thing all plays out. Should be an absolutely incredible 6 nights of racing.